Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins History, where we dig deep into the pockets of time and uncover hidden treasures from everyday coins you might not even know you have. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at a plain old penny and thought, this little thing can't be worth much, right? Well, you might want to hold on to your seat because today, we're diving into one of the most overlooked coins in your change jar, the 1980 Lincoln 1-cent coin from the United States of America. At first glance, it looks like any other penny. It's small, brown, and has that familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln that we've all seen thousands of times. But what if I told you that this tiny copper coin, if it meets certain rare conditions, could be worth a life-changing amount of money? Let's start with a bit of a trip back in time. The year is 1980. America is in the middle of a cultural shift. The economy is rebounding, personal computers are just beginning to take shape, and Ronald Reagan is about to change the political landscape. Amidst all this, the U.S. Mint continues to produce billions of coins to keep up with the nation's busy economy. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Lincoln penny has been a fixture in American currency since 1909, celebrating the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. Over the decades, the design has changed only slightly, but in 1980, something happened that would make a few of these coins stand out to collectors and experts even decades later. This year was part of the last full stretch where pennies were still made mostly of copper. That's important, because after 1982, the U.S. Mint began transitioning to a cheaper zinc composition with only a thin copper coating to save costs. But in 1980, these coins were still made of 95% copper. That means they have a bit more heft, a slightly richer color, and, believe it or not, a lot more potential value. But let's be clear, not every 1980 penny is worth a fortune. What gives a penny its hidden power is a combination of rarity, condition, and in some rare cases, minting errors. And that's where things get really exciting. You see, minting errors are kind of like nature's accidents, only these accidents can make you money. In the world of coin collecting, a coin with an off-center strike, a double die, or even a rare design variation is like striking gold. For example, some 1980 pennies have been found with extremely rare die breaks, misalignments, or doubling effects, especially on the date or on Lincoln's profile. These errors are not only fascinating to look at, they're also incredibly valuable to the right collector. Now let's talk about condition. Most pennies in circulation get pretty beat up. They're dropped, scraped, rubbed, and spend years in pockets and drawers. But once in a while, someone finds one that's nearly untouched, what collectors call mint state or uncirculated. These coins still have their original luster, clear details, and absolutely no signs of wear. So, if you find a 1980 Lincoln penny that's in pristine condition, or even better, if it has a rare error, don't just toss it into your change jar. That coin could be a collector's dream. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. How much could one of these seemingly ordinary pennies actually be worth? Hold on to your wallets, because a rare 1980 Lincoln penny in mint condition with a unique error has been valued at an eye-popping, jaw-dropping $41,000. Yes. A penny worth that much. So before you pass that 1-cent coin along without a second thought, take a good, close look at it. Because the next time you check your spare change, you might just be holding a tiny copper coin that's worth more than a luxury car. Today, we're unlocking the surprising story behind one of the most common, and most underestimated, coins in American pockets, the 1977 Lincoln penny. Yep, that little 1-cent coin you probably ignore every day. It might be worth a whole lot more than just a cent. And I'm not talking a few dollars here and there, I'm talking about a number that will leave your jaw on the floor. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to be looking at your spare change a little differently. Now let's rewind the clock to 1977. It was the year Star Wars hit theaters for the first time, the Atari 2600 changed gaming forever, and Jimmy Carter had just been sworn in as President of the United States. In the middle of all this cultural and political change, the U.S. Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents, coins that people would use, spend, drop, and forget about in the blink of an eye. But not all 1977 pennies were created equal. And that's where things get interesting. The Lincoln penny, as you probably know, has been a staple of American currency since 1909. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure instead of the traditional allegorical Lady Liberty. On the front is the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln, and on the back, until 2008, was the image of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. The 1977 edition looks like many other Lincoln cents, but in the world of coin collecting, the smallest details make the biggest difference. We're talking about things like mint marks, errors during production, and the condition of the coin itself. These subtle variations are what separate a regular penny from a coin that could be worth thousands of dollars. Let's start with what collectors love most: mint errors. These are like factory mistakes that somehow slipped through the cracks and made it out into circulation. Double die errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, and clipped planchets. These oddities are incredibly rare, and when they show up on a 1977 penny, they can instantly transform a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. For example, a 1977 penny with a double die, where the lettering or Lincoln's profile appears doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process, is highly sought after. It's not just an error. It's a visual curiosity, and collectors are willing to pay serious money for that uniqueness. Then there's the condition. Coins that have been circulated tend to get scratched, worn down, or even corroded over time. But a 1977 penny that has been kept in pristine, uncirculated condition? That's a completely different story. A coin with original luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear is called a mint state coin, and those are what auction houses and collectors compete for. And while most people think the copper used in these pennies is what gives them value, the truth is, it's really about rarity, preservation, and uniqueness. The coin you casually toss in a tip jar could be the same coin that someone else would frame, insure, and proudly showcase in a collector's case. Now, let's talk mint marks, those tiny letters you see under the date on some coins. A 1977 penny might have a D for Denver, or it might have no mint mark at all, indicating it was minted in Philadelphia. While neither version is especially rare in general circulation, a rare error on either of those could instantly raise the coin's value to an extraordinary level. So, the next time you're sorting through old change or stumbling upon coins in a forgotten jar, don't be so quick to overlook those old pennies, especially ones from the late 70s. Because if you're lucky enough to find a 1977 Lincoln cent with a significant error and in near-perfect condition, you could be in for a big surprise. And that brings us to the big reveal. Believe it or not, a single 1977 Lincoln penny, when found in exceptional mint state with a rare error, has been known to fetch an astonishing price at auction. Are you ready for it? That tiny 1-cent coin could be worth a staggering $44,000. Yes, you heard that right. Just imagine, one penny, possibly hiding in plain sight in your collection or your change jar, could be worth more than some luxury cars, more than many people's annual salaries, and definitely more than you ever thought a penny could be. So, what are you waiting for? Go grab that old jar of coins, check your drawer, search your pockets. That little copper coin from 1977 might just be your golden ticket. Today, we're diving into a coin that most people overlook completely. It's small, copper-colored, and probably sitting in a bowl or jar somewhere in your house right now. We're talking about the 1971 Lincoln penny, a 1-cent coin that, under the right conditions, could be worth far more than its face value. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's just a penny, right? How special could it be? But here's the thing, some coins carry more than just historical value. Some carry mystery. Some carry rare features that make collectors around the world go wild. And the 1971 Lincoln penny is one of those coins. Let's take a moment to go back to 1971. It was a year of change and challenge. The Vietnam War was still raging, Apollo 14 landed on the moon, and in the US, the economy was adjusting to inflation and the aftermath of the 60s. Amid all of this, the US Mint was hard at work, striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to keep the American economy moving. The Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909, has become one of the most recognizable coins in the world. On the front, of course, is the timeless profile of President Abraham Lincoln. On the reverse, until 2008, was the image of the Lincoln Memorial. But in 1971, something else was being imprinted into these coins, something that, in rare cases, made them incredibly valuable. So, what exactly makes a 1971 penny stand out? Let's begin with the material. These pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. That's right, real copper, unlike the later coins that would switch to a cheaper composition. But copper alone isn't what turns this penny into a hidden fortune. What truly matters is condition, rarity, and errors, and that's where things get exciting. You see, not every 1971 penny is created equal. In fact, some were struck with what collectors call a double die, a rare and fascinating error that causes certain features of the coin, like the date or the lettering, to appear doubled. This is caused during the minting process when the die used to stamp the coin shifts or is misaligned, creating a ghost-like image on top of the original design. These double die errors are rare, and when they happen clearly, they drive coin collectors absolutely crazy, but it's not just about errors. The condition of the coin plays a huge role too. Most pennies are passed around for decades, getting scratched, tarnished, and worn down. But every once in a while, someone stashes one away, maybe straight from a bankroll or pulled out of circulation early, and that coin remains in uncirculated, mint state condition. These are the coins collectors are desperate to find. Their edges are sharp, their designs are crisp, and their luster is still bright after all these years. Let's not forget about mint marks either. A 1971 penny with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia. A penny with a small d below the date was struck in Denver. And there's also a version struck in San Francisco, marked with an S. Among these, some of the San Francisco proof coins, made specially for collectors, can be worth more when they remain sealed and flawless. But what truly makes a 1971 penny jump from interesting to incredible is when one of these coins has a rare error and is in immaculate condition. Now, here's the fun part. You might be thinking, okay, but how much can a single penny really be worth? A few dollars? Maybe 100? Well, buckle up, because if you come across a 1971 Lincoln penny that's in pristine, uncirculated condition, and it has a rare mint error like a dramatic double die or off-center strike, you could be holding something truly valuable, and by valuable, I mean this. One such penny has been known to fetch a jaw-dropping $46,000 at auction. Yes, you heard that right. A 1-cent coin. Just a tiny sliver of copper that's been passed over by millions of people, possibly sitting unnoticed in a drawer or a forgotten jar. That same coin, under the right circumstances, could be worth more than a brand new car. More than a year's salary. More than some people's entire savings. So what can you do? Start looking. Dig through your old piggy banks, your coffee tins full of coins, or the stacks of change you've been meaning to cash in. Get a magnifying glass, check the dates, look for doubling, and study the condition. You might just discover that you've been holding onto a tiny piece of treasure all along. Today's video is about a coin that millions of people have handled, spent, or tossed aside without ever knowing what it might truly be worth. We're talking about the 1978 Lincoln penny. Yes, just a simple 1-cent coin from the United States. At first glance, it looks like every other penny you've seen in your life. But there's a twist. Because under certain rare and fascinating circumstances, this little copper coin might just be worth a small fortune. Let's set the scene. The year is 1978. The Bee Gees are ruling the charts. Grease hits theaters. Gas is under $1 a gallon. Jimmy Carter is in the White House. And across the country, people are using pennies like, well, pennies, grabbing coffee, paying for parking, making exact change without ever imagining that a few of those coins might become highly sought-after collectibles. The Lincoln cent, introduced way back in 1909, is already an iconic piece of American coinage. It was the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person, President Abraham Lincoln. By 1978, it had been in circulation for nearly 70 years, and the design still featured Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. It was simple, familiar, and everywhere, but here's what most people don't realize: 1978 wasn't just another boring year for the penny. In fact, it was one of the years where minting errors, rare varieties, and high-grade coins combined to create opportunities for collectors and treasure hunters. Let's start with what really excites the coin world: mint errors. Mistakes at the US Mint are rare, but they do happen, and when they do, they can turn ordinary coins into extraordinary discoveries. In 1978, some Lincoln pennies were struck with what's known as double die obverse, where the date or lettering appears double due to a misalignment during the minting process. These coins are a dream come true for collectors. The more obvious and dramatic the doubling, the higher the value. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is pushed partly off the coin's surface, and die cracks or cuds, where a piece of the die actually breaks off and leaves a raised blob on the coin. These minting flaws aren't supposed to happen, but when they do, they create coins that are unique, one of a kind in many cases, and that makes them extremely collectible. Now, let's talk about condition, because it's just as important as rarity. Most pennies from 1978 have been through decades of wear and tear. They've been dropped, scraped, oxidized, and tossed into vending machines over and over again. But once in a while, a coin survives in perfect shape. No scratches, no signs of circulation, just sharp lines, glowing luster, and full detail. These are known as mint state coins, and they can be incredibly valuable, especially when combined with an error or rare variety, and we can't forget about proof coins either. In 1978, the San Francisco Mint produced special proof versions of the Lincoln penny, coins struck with extra care, using polished dies, to create a mirror-like finish. These were never meant for circulation and were only sold to collectors. If one of these proof coins also happens to have a rare error or unique feature, its value can skyrocket even further. So you might be wondering, how do I know if my 1978 penny is special? Here's what to look for: sharp details and no signs of wear, unusual markings, doubling, or misalignments, any raised bumps or cracks that don't belong, off-center strikes or missing design elements. And if you find a penny that fits any of those descriptions, it's definitely worth having it checked out by a professional coin grading service, because, and here's the moment you've been waiting for, a 1978 Lincoln penny, when found in near-perfect condition with a rare error, has been known to reach auction values as high as $43,000, yes, you heard that correctly. A single penny. 1 cent, worth more than many luxury cars. Worth more than some people's entire annual salary. All hidden in plain sight inside a coin that millions of people have ignored for decades. So the next time you see a penny on the ground, or dig through your old coin jar, take a closer look. Because buried among those coins, you might just find a tiny piece of American history with a giant value. Today, we're taking a closer look at a coin that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. It's one you've almost definitely seen, maybe even used yourself. It's the 1968 Lincoln penny, and believe it or not, this humble 1-cent coin could be worth a whole lot more than you'd expect. Now I know what you might be thinking: how can a penny from the 60s be worth anything? Isn't it just another old coin made by the millions? Well, that's where things get interesting, because while millions of these coins were struck and circulated, only a select few have the rare features, the flawless condition, or the minting errors that transform them from a piece of loose change into a collector's dream. So, let's rewind to 1968 for a minute. The world was changing fast. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy had just been assassinated, the Vietnam War was escalating, and the civil rights movement was in full swing. Against this backdrop of intense social and political change, the U.S. Mint quietly continued producing one of America's most iconic coins, the Lincoln cent. By 1968, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for nearly 6 decades, originally introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. The obverse still featured his familiar portrait, while the reverse showcased the stately Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to mark the sesquicentennial of his birth. But something else was happening behind the scenes at the Mint, something that would make the 1968 penny a future collector's target. You see, not all 1968 Lincoln cents are created equal. First off, let's talk about mint marks. In 1968, pennies were struck at 3 different locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The ones from Denver bear a small D under the date. The San Francisco coins have an S mint mark, and those from Philadelphia have no mint mark at all. While all of these are worth checking out, the San Francisco S mint pennies, especially the proof versions, are where things start to get really exciting. Why? Because San Francisco was producing proof coins, highly detailed, mirror-like coins intended for collectors, not general circulation. These were struck using polished dies and planchets to produce stunning detail and contrast. But sometimes, even these premium coins came with unexpected surprises, like minting errors. Now let's get into what really makes a 1968 penny worth money. One word: errors. These are like little accidents that happen during the minting process. And in the coin world, accidents often mean opportunity. Some 1968 pennies were struck with what's called a double die obverse, where the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile appears slightly doubled, creating a ghost-like visual effect. These errors are rare, eye-catching, and extremely valuable to collectors. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin's design is shifted to one side, and die cracks or cuts, which occur when a damaged die leaves behind raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin. Each of these mistakes turns an ordinary penny into a one-of-a-kind piece, and collectors will pay handsomely to own them, but errors aren't the only factor. The condition of the coin plays a massive role. A 1968 penny that's scratched, worn, or corroded. It's worth, well, maybe a little more than face value. But a 1968 Lincoln penny that has never been in circulation? That's a different story entirely. These coins, known as mint state or uncirculated, show no signs of wear. They have sharp details, clean edges, and their original coppery shine. Combine that pristine condition with a rare mint mark or an error, and you've got something special. And here's another tip for all you treasure hunters: look closely at the S mint mark. Some 1968 S-proof pennies have been discovered with striking doubling errors, especially on the word Liberty and the date. These are highly sought-after coins that can sell for eye-popping sums. Now comes the question that's been building since the start of the video: what is one of these 1968 pennies actually worth? If you're lucky enough to find a 1968 Lincoln penny that's in mint condition and has a significant, rare error, especially from the San Francisco Mint, you might just be holding something incredibly valuable. And by valuable, I mean a penny that has sold at auction for as much as $47,000. Yes, you heard that right. That's not a typo. 1 cent, worth $47,000. So the next time you're sorting through old coins, or you stumble across a handful of change in the bottom of an old drawer, take a second look. That 1968 penny might not just be a piece of history, it could be a fortune waiting to be found. Today, we're going to take a closer look at a coin that most people would never give a second thought, a tiny copper piece of history that could be worth far more than 1 cent. You guessed it, we're talking about the 1975 Lincoln penny. Now before you shrug and think, it's just another old penny, let me stop you right there. Because what you're about to hear might just change the way you look at every penny from now on. The 1975 Lincoln cent might seem like an ordinary coin. In fact, you probably have one sitting somewhere in your house right now, maybe in a jar, a junk drawer, or stuck between the cushions of your couch. But don't be fooled by its everyday appearance. Some of these coins, under very specific conditions, can be worth thousands. Let's step back for a moment. The year is 1975. The Vietnam War is drawing to a close, Muhammad Ali is making headlines, and Jaws is scaring audiences out of the water. Meanwhile, over at the US Mint, millions upon millions of pennies are being struck to support the busy American economy. The Lincoln penny had already been around for over 65 years by then, first introduced in 1909 to celebrate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. By 1975, it still carried his iconic profile on the obverse, while the reverse side showcased the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been introduced in 1959. The overall look hadn't changed much, but in the world of coin collecting, what matters isn't just how the coin looks, it's how it was made, where it was made, and what might have gone wrong along the way. And that's where things get really interesting. There are 3 key things that can make a 1975 penny extremely valuable. mint mark, condition, and most of all, errors. Let's start with the mint marks. In 1975, pennies were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The ones from Denver carry a small d under the date. Those from Philadelphia don't have a mint mark at all. Neither is rare on its own, but when you combine one of these coins with a rare error or exceptional condition, that's when collectors start paying serious money. So what kind of errors are we talking about? Some 1975 pennies were struck with doubled dies, where the design appears doubled, most noticeably in the lettering or the date. These double die varieties are like minting glitches, and they're not supposed to happen. But when they do, they create coins that are instantly more desirable. Others have been found with off-center strikes, where the stamping is misaligned, leaving a portion of the design missing or shifted. Then there are die cracks, cuds, and even struck-through errors, where foreign material gets between the die and the planchet during the strike, leaving unusual textures or marks. Each of these types of errors creates a unique coin, no two exactly alike, and that rarity is what collectors love. But there's one more ingredient that can skyrocket a penny's value: condition. Most pennies from the 70s have had a rough life. They've been circulated, handled, and tossed around for decades. But if a coin somehow avoided all that, if it was pulled from circulation early or kept safe in a roll or a coin folder, it might still be in mint state condition. These coins have no wear, retain their original luster, and display sharp, clean details. And here's where the magic happens. When a 1975 penny has both a rare error and is in top-grade condition, the price it can fetch is absolutely astonishing. Think about it, a coin that people use every day without a second thought. A coin that's been dropped, pocketed, and passed around for nearly 50 years. One of those coins, under the right circumstances, could change someone's life. And that brings us to the big reveal. If you're lucky enough to find a 1975 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error and in flawless, uncirculated condition, you could be holding something truly remarkable. That simple little coin, once worth just a single cent, could now be worth as much as $42,500. Yes. You heard that right. 1 cent, worth $42,500. So before you toss your spare change into the coin counter, take a closer look. That 1975 penny might just be the hidden treasure you never knew you had. Today, we're diving into a coin that looks ordinary, but might just be hiding an extraordinary secret. We're talking about the 1970 Lincoln penny, a coin that could be worth far, far more than its face value if you know what to look for. Most of us walk right past pennies on the sidewalk or toss them in the glove compartment without a second thought. But what if I told you that a single penny from 1970 could be worth more than a brand new car? That one little cent might have the power to shock your wallet, in the best way possible. Let's roll the clock back for a moment. It's 1970. The Beatles just broke up. Apollo 13 narrowly avoids disaster. Gas is 36 cents a gallon. And all across the United States, the U.S. Mint is busy producing the familiar Lincoln cent, a coin that had already been in production for over 60 years by that point. The 1970 penny keeps the classic look: Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. It's a simple design, one that every American has seen and used. But it's the hidden details that turn some of these 1970 pennies into high-value collectibles. You see, not all 1970 pennies are created equal. In that year, pennies were struck at 3 U.S. Mint locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The ones from Denver have a tiny D mint mark under the date, and the rarest and most desirable ones often come from San Francisco, marked with an S. Here's where it gets exciting. 1970 is famous in the coin collecting world for a very specific and rare variety, the 1970 S small date penny. It might sound like a minor detail, but collectors go wild for it. The size and position of the numbers in the date can actually affect a coin's rarity and, ultimately, its value. Now pair that with the potential for minting errors, and suddenly you've got a whole different story. There are 1970 Lincoln cents out there that were struck with double die obverse, where the date or the lettering appears doubled, especially on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." These double die varieties are rare and extremely collectible. The clearer the doubling, the higher the value, but that's not the only error to look out for. You've got off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned. Clipped planchets, where part of the coin is missing. Even die cracks or cuds, where parts of the metal have bubbled or broken during the striking process. Every one of these oddities turns a regular penny into something special, and often very valuable, and don't forget about condition. It's not just about what error a coin might have, it's about how well that coin has been preserved. A coin that looks like it was just pulled from a roll in 1970, free of scratches, dents, and corrosion, is considered mint state, and that condition dramatically increases its worth. Some of the most valuable 1970 pennies are those that combine all these elements: the right mint mark, a rare date variety, a significant error, and near-perfect condition. Those are the coins that collectors compete for. Those are the coins that auctioneers love. And those are the coins that could completely change how you think about the little brown coin in your change pile. So, what happens if you find one? How much could it be worth? Let's say you're one of the lucky ones. You found a 1970 Lincoln penny with a rare mint mark, a dramatic double die error, and it's in flawless mint state condition. You might think it's worth a few $100. Maybe even a few thousand. But here's the truth: one of these tiny coins, under the right circumstances, has been known to reach an incredible auction value of $44,800. Yes, you heard that right. One single cent, worth $44,800. That's more than most new cars. That's more than some people make in an entire year. And it could be sitting in a jar of spare change right now, completely unnoticed. So don't ignore those pennies. Check the date. Look at the mint mark. Study the lettering. Because hidden among the ordinary are coins that are anything but. If you found this video fascinating, go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe to the channel for more eye-opening stories about valuable coins, and don't forget to tap that notification bell so you never miss a chance to discover the treasure hidden in your own home. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy hunting.